They packed my suitcase while I was still sitting in the living room. Not because I was sick, not because I couldn't walk, but because, according to my son, it was time. Time. I was 72 years old, standing in my own house, watching my daughter-in-law fold my sweaters like I was already gone. "It's for your safety," she said softly, not meeting my eyes. My son avoided looking at me at all, and that was the moment I realized something that hurt more than betrayal. They had already decided I was inconvenient. They just needed me out of the way. What they didn't know was simple. The nursing home they chose for me, I owned the building, but I didn't say a word. Not yet. It started 3 months earlier. After my husband passed, the house got quiet. Too quiet. I missed the sound of his boots near the door, the way he cleared his throat before speaking, the smell of coffee he always burned. Grief makes people uncomfortable, especially younger people. My son, Daniel, began visiting more often. At first, I thought it was love. Then I noticed a pattern. He wasn't asking how I felt, he was asking where paperwork was. "Mom, do you know where Dad kept the insurance documents? Mom, did you ever update your will? Mom, the house is a lot for one person." The house. My husband and I built that house from nothing. We saved for 12 years. I worked 2 jobs when Daniel was small. I stitched curtains myself because we couldn't afford custom ones. Every wall held a memory, but Daniel saw square footage. One evening, he sat at my kitchen table and said, "You don't need all this space anymore." I looked at him carefully. "Need? You'd be more comfortable somewhere with care," he continued. "Activities, medical staff. I'm not sick. It's just planning ahead." Planning ahead. For what? I was still driving, still cooking, still walking 2 miles every morning. But I saw something in his eyes. Impatience. A week later, his wife Laura came over with brochures. Glossy pages, smiling elderly people playing chess. "This place is beautiful," she said, sliding one across the table. "They even have a garden." I studied the brochure. Brightwood Senior Living, private suites, full-service dining, 24-hour care. It looked expensive. "Who's paying for this?" I asked calmly. Daniel answered quickly, "We'll figure it out. The house can cover it." There it was. The house can cover it. I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly, because here's what they didn't know. 10 years earlier, when my husband's construction business started doing well, we didn't just build homes, we invested, quietly. Brightwood Senior Living wasn't just a facility, it was a commercial property partnership. My name was on the deed. My husband had insisted, "Never put everything in one basket," he used to say. When he passed, ownership transferred fully to me. Daniel never paid attention to those details. He never asked. So when he proudly told me we found the perfect place, I already knew more than he did. Still, I stayed quiet. I wanted to see how far they would go. The decision happened fast. Too fast. One Sunday morning, Daniel arrived with boxes. "We scheduled the move for Tuesday," he said like he was announcing a dinner reservation. "Tuesday?" I repeated. "It's better not to drag it out." Laura hugged me lightly. "You'll love it there." I watched them move through my home like it was already theirs, taking down photo frames, sorting through dishes, deciding what I needed. At one point, I walked into my bedroom and saw Laura holding my jewelry box. "Oh, I was just organizing," she said quickly. I stepped forward slowly and took it from her hands. "I can organize my own things." She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. That night, I sat alone in the living room, not crying, just thinking. It wasn't about the nursing home, it was about respect. They didn't ask, they decided. Tuesday came. They drove me there themselves. The building stood tall and clean with wide glass doors and fresh landscaping, exactly the way I remembered approving it years ago. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. "See, it's nice." I looked up at the sign. Brightwood Senior Living. Very nice. Inside, the administrator greeted us warmly. "Mrs. Carter," she said, extending her hand. She recognized me immediately, but she didn't say anything. Professional, smart woman. Daniel filled out paperwork at the desk while I sat quietly in the lobby. Laura leaned toward me and whispered, "This is for the best." For who? After the papers were signed, Daniel exhaled like he had just completed a difficult task. "We'll visit you every weekend," he promised. I smiled softly. Of course. They hugged me, then they left. I watched them walk through the glass doors without looking back. Silence filled the lobby. The administrator, Miss Reynolds, approached gently. "Would you like to see your office?" she asked quietly. I nodded. Not my room, my office. We walked down a hallway, past decorated doors and framed photos. She opened a private door near the administrative wing. Inside was a small furnished office with a desk, computer, and window overlooking the courtyard. "I've kept everything as you requested," she said. "Thank you." Because while Daniel thought he was placing me in care, I had scheduled a quarterly operations review. The staff knew me as the owner, residents knew me as a visiting board member. Only my son thought I was helpless. That afternoon, I toured the building, not as a patient, but as the landlord. I reviewed maintenance logs, checked renovation progress, discussed budget projections. Miss Reynolds hesitated before asking, "Do you plan to tell your family?" "Not yet," I said calmly. That evening, Daniel called. "How's your room?" he asked. "It's comfortable," I replied truthfully. I didn't mention the office. I didn't mention the investment reports sitting on my desk. I let him believe what he wanted. Over the next 2 weeks, something interesting happened. Daniel and Laura started discussing selling my house without me. I found out because Daniel accidentally left financial papers on the kitchen counter during one of his visits. Projected sale value, estimated profit. They were calculating their future using my past. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not anger, clarity. The next Sunday, when they came to visit, Daniel looked around my room nervously. "Are they treating you well?" he asked. "Yes," I said calmly. "Very well. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow about expansion plans." "Expansion?" he frowned. "For the building," I replied. Laura looked confused. "Why would you be in that meeting?" I held her gaze. "Because I own it." Silence. Daniel blinked. "Own it? What?" "This building," I said gently. "Brightwood Senior Living. It's part of the commercial properties your father and I invested in. The deed is under my name." His face drained of color. "That's not funny, Mom." "I'm not joking." Laura's hand slowly slid off her purse strap. "You're saying this is yours?" she whispered. "Yes." Daniel sat down heavily in the chair beside the bed. "You never told me. You never asked." The room felt very small suddenly. "You let us move you here," he said, voice shaking slightly. "You moved me here," I corrected. Laura spoke carefully now. "So you're not actually staying?" I smiled softly. "Oh, I'm staying." Their eyes widened. "But not the way you thought." The next words came out steady. "I'm restructuring my estate." Daniel swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" "It means decisions will be made based on respect, not convenience." Silence pressed against the walls. "For weeks, you treated me like a problem to solve." "That's not fair," he muttered. "No," I agreed calmly. "I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply laid out facts. You tried to manage my life without including me. You planned to sell my home before I had even adjusted." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "We were trying to help. Help doesn't erase someone." Laura finally spoke, softer now. "We thought you were lonely." "I was," I said honestly, "but loneliness doesn't mean I stop existing." The power in the room had shifted, not because I raised my voice, but because truth doesn't need volume. Daniel looked at me differently then, not as a burden, as a woman he didn't fully know. "What are you going to do?" he asked quietly. "I'm selling the house," I said. Laura's eyes lit up slightly. "But," I continued, "the proceeds will go into a trust." Daniel stiffened. "For what?" "For the residents here who can't afford long-term care." Complete silence. I let that sit. "You're giving it away?" Laura whispered. "I'm investing it," I corrected. Daniel stared at the floor. "You're punishing us," he said. "No," I replied softly. "I'm teaching you." The lesson wasn't about money. It was about dignity. Over the next month, paperwork moved quickly. The house sold above asking price. The trust was established. Brightwood expanded its financial assistance program. And I moved into a larger private suite, by choice.
Daniel visited less often at first. Embarrassment is heavy, but slowly conversations changed. He asked about my day, about my meetings, about my plans. For the first time in years, he listened. One afternoon, he stood beside me in the courtyard. "I didn't see you clearly," he admitted. "I know," I said. "You thought I needed managing. I needed respect." He nodded. "I'm sorry." That word mattered, not because it fixed everything, but because it was real. Power doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like sitting peacefully in a space you own, while the people who underestimated you finally understand. They sent me to a nursing home thinking I was fading. They didn't know I was expanding. They thought they were closing a chapter. They didn't realize I was writing a new one. If something like this has ever happened to you, if someone tried to decide your worth based on your age, tell me in the comments.